Welcome to the Startup Dentist Podcast. I'm your host, Steven Trutter. After over 800 plus successful dental startups, I'm here to share everything I know about starting a profitable and purposeful dental practice with you. Welcome back to the Startup Dentist Podcast. Super excited for today's episode. Recently, I was talking, I love talking about all kinds of topics. And on a most recent episode, if you're thinking about becoming a practice owner, and what I want you to do is start to think about, as you're an associate, making connections with those patients that are in front of you, and talking about the patient relationship and how that helps drive the connections within your community, which is where we're going to head here today. So check out the most recent episode where I talk about the authentic relationship that you have with a patient. One patient turns into two, two turns into eight, eight turns into, so on and so forth. But it starts with one. So check out that most recent episode where I talk about the strategies about making connections, not about how to sell dentistry, but how to have better case acceptance by having those connections and being confident in what you do on a daily basis. Today's episode is about something, I'll say this, like after almost 1,000 startups, I'll say this. Today's episode is about something that most dentists sometimes completely overlook. Now, if you have gone through our 13-stage process for starting up your practice, then you know that we spend a lot of time on this. And today's episode is about what a lot of dentists, when they come in as new practice owners, overlook when trying to actually launch a practice. And yet this could be the fastest, most authentic way to fill your schedule with the kinds of patients that you love. We're talking about community engagement. Now, we're not talking about marketing tricks. We're not talking about discounts. We're not talking about insurance games. We're talking about becoming known, trusted presence in your community and how that translates to that launch of your practice, to real growth, real relationships, and momentum, because you get one shot at a startup. And this, I like to call this the secret sauce here at Ideal Practices when we're working with our clients, because we always say, the first 100 patients are on you. So if you want to truly launch a practice, whether you're buying a practice, whether you're starting a practice, then you need to tune in and listen, because we're going to go through some powerful stuff here today. So grab that notebook and let's make this dream practice of yours a living and breathing reality. Here's the thing is, when people talk about marketing, and I see it on a lot of the Facebook groups, I think people always ask, who's everybody using for marketing, or what's everybody doing for marketing? And I think what most people are thinking about is things like, most dentists feel that growth comes from more ads, better SEO, more insurance participation, but more tactics. And while these things can help, they're crowded, they're expensive, and they're very transactional. But here's the truth. Patients don't choose dentists the way they choose a television or a product. They choose based upon trust, familiarity, connections, reviews. Talking about, and nothing builds that faster than showing up in your community. So we're going to talk about a lot of these tactics here today. But let's define this clearly, because this is where a lot of people get this wrong. Community engagement is not this random sponsorships with like no follow-up. Going to a community event like I'm handing out pens and toothbrushes without actually engaging with people, having a conversation, not trying to sell them dentistry, but actually engaging in conversation. I've seen, dentists over the years try these different things like, oh, I did this event, and, I just stood there at a table and handed out water bottles. Did you talk to people? Did you engage in conversation? What it's not is also writing a check and hoping people notice your logo, putting your name on the back of a T-ball team. That's great. Social media without real interaction. Like those things, that is not what community engagement is. Community engagement is being visible, being accessible, being human, being engaged. Now, I think for a lot of you may think, Steven, I'm not an extroverted person. That's cool. You can be Superman and you can be Clark Kent. Clark Kent, the quiet guy that worked at the
Daily, whatever it was called, Bugle, maybe? No, whatever newspaper he worked at with Lois Lane, Superman. And then all of a sudden he was like, he had to go into the telephone booth. Okay, so for those that are listening that are way younger than me, back in the day, there weren't things like this. If you're watching, or if you're listening, I'm holding up my phone. This is an iPhone, whatever version it is, 16 or something like that. Yeah, iPhones didn't exist. When we had to get home and we had to call our parents, we had phone booths. We had pay phones. We had to have change. There was a person called an operator. We had to call them. Okay, I'm digressing, but that's where Superman went in, took off his, his newspaper guy uniform and became Superman. You can think about this. You have a choice. Do you want to grow faster or not? These things about community engagement are so essential. Like, this is the foundation of some our startup marketing strategy that's built hundreds of successful startups. So folks, it works, but it only works if you actually do it. So what I want people to say is, I want people to say in your committee, oh yeah, I know that dentist. Oh yeah, I know who he or she is. That's the moment where everything changes. So let's talk about speed, because I promised you fast growth. Okay, here's why community engagement accelerates everything. Trust is pre-built. When you're building out a practice, I always talk about things like pre-planning your reputation even before the doors open. Pre-plan it so that people know who you are within the community. Really think about okay, before my doors open, how do I want people to write about me? How do I want people to know who we are in my practice? When someone meets you at a school event, the local gym or a charity function, now you're no longer a stranger. You're already vetted. Try to skip the comparison game. They're not Googling, put it this way, people aren't Googling 5 dentists. They're calling you. Word of mouth multiplies. One connection gets you to 5. 5 becomes 20. And those referrals are higher quality and they're more loyal. Okay, folks, you get that? So word of mouth, connecting with local businesses. So we're going to talk about some of the practical ways that you can actually engage. So word of mouth, boy, that's how this works. A few months ago, I had one of our clients on. Her name was Dr. Aarti, and I told her story multiple times, but she's in New York. I'll just tell you where she's at, the concrete jungle, if you will. And I've never seen a practice grow the way that she does, is because it's the connections. Everybody that she meets is a connection, whether through her kids' events, whether it's through local dental societies, whether it's through events that she hosts with other business owners, making connections with referring partners. She's a general dentist, but still making connections with people that meet other other providers, other medical providers that fit her ideal patient, that treat her ideal patients. She talked about this on that podcast a couple months ago, where it's in her case, 1 became 5 and 5 did become 20 of these loyal people that are supported. And she built trust with these people so that when they said, I have somebody I need to refer to you, it was she was number 1 on the list because she had that loyalty. She was vetted and there was a trust that was built. It wasn't about, man, she's got the fastest hands in New York, or wow, she's got the greatest discounts. None of that was a factor. It was simply about the trust that was built. That's what we have to talk about. So let's get tactical. If you're thinking, cool, Stephen, community engagement, I've heard it before, but what do I actually do? So here we go. When we're talking about this, I think people are still looking at tactics. So these are some tactics, but they roll into a whole marketing strategy. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't have a marketing agency. I'm saying you should have a marketing agency, like website and all those different things. Don't build it yourself unless you've done this hundreds of times. You need to have an agency. You need to be able to do those things. There are Google ads and all those different things. SEO. Here's the thing though. Those are longer elements. From day one, if you're launching a startup, those elements, your SEO isn't ranking from day one. Google ads don't hit from day one. And those are expensive marketing investments. Still should be a part of a marketing strategy, website, and all those different elements. But know when you start launch a practice, like those patients that first come through your door need to be on your shoulders. So we're talking about community events. We're talking about family connections, friends, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we'll talk about like VIP lists that are here. So partnering with local schools, education days within your community, sponsor reading programs or sports teams, provide value to the schools, not just branding. Get involved with fitness and wellness communities. There are CrossFit gyms all over America. There are yoga studios. There are run clubs. Maybe offer workshops on oral health and performance. Like the day and age of like dentistry is just for teeth is not where we're at. We're way beyond that. There is a direct correlation between overall health and oral health. This oral and systemic health isn't like a fad. It's a continuously growing thing. And I'm not talking about like biological, dentistry. I'm talking about like the connection. I remember years ago when I was in high school and might have been college, somewhere in that range. I think it was college. I had my first cavity. Yeah, it took me a while. I did pretty good for a partner. So number one, partner with local schools. What I'm talking about is maybe some free education days, sponsoring reading programs or sports teams, provide value. But think about the children and they hear about you and then they go to their mom and dad and they talk about like, wow, this dentist came in and like they gave us all this different education. Now it's like you're again, community. Number two, get involved in fitness and wellness communities. Yoga studios, CrossFit gyms. I'm not saying you have to do CrossFit, but like make the connections. Maybe there's a connection there with gyms or local, run clubs and different things. Are the things that you're passionate about to be able to make those connections within those? Offer workshops between on oral health and performance. There is this big connection between overall health and oral health. It's oral systemic element that exists right there. I remember almost 20 years ago when I had to go in for a cavity, one of my first cavities ever. I remember the dentist was talking about like my health history. And he said, had you had any heart problems? And as a child, I had a heart murmur. And I remember they said, oh, heart murmur. Well, we need to do some additional testing. I'm going, I'm just here to get a cavity filled, and I'm 19, 20 years old. And I said, why? Well, because like something could happen, the blood and where the heart murmur is and the location of the heart, like if something happens, it could go to that spot in your heart and cause a massive problem. And that was the first time I was ever exposed to dentistry and heart. Dentistry and like, other than the blood, like there's blood obviously sometimes, but like I didn't realize that. And so I have those connections that exist there. Number three, host small intentional events, coffee and conversation nights, have meet the dentist open house, patient appreciation events, like small events, connections with other people within your community. Let them know who you are beyond the white coat. That's the big thing here, because nobody's choosing a dentist these days and go, wow, that dentist, their margins are the best. And that's the reason why I go there. They don't half the people don't want to be there anyhow, but they remember the connection that you make and those small things of like seeing you that are and seeing you at these small events. Collaborate with local businesses, co-host events, cross-promote services, build a referral ecosystem. Okay. This is not about just like asking for patients. This is about what can you do for other people? In my business, like, we refer business to different people in different industries because, obviously there's things that we do and things that we don't do. I'm always asking people like, what can I do to help support their business? Don't just go with your hand out going, do you have patients? Bad. But you need to collaborate with local businesses in order to do this. And the last part is show up consistently, not once, not twice. Consistency creates familiarity, and familiarity builds trust. I know, like, if you think about this from this perspective, in order to get a patient or a client and you're in a business and things like that, you have to figure out how many touches does it take in order for somebody to make that decision. Now, keep in mind, the average person goes to see their dentist, every 6 months. So if you're marketing a practice and you're opening your practice, let's say in April, does that mean you do events and things like that all of a sudden like, oh, those things didn't work? They may not have worked then. It may take 3 or 4 times, maybe even 5 times for somebody to make that phone call because maybe they're not ready yet. Maybe they don't have that connection yet with you. Maybe they're just not ready to see their dentist yet. So that's why it's not about once or twice saying, no, that didn't work. Yep. Hey, I listened to Stephen Trutter one time on this podcast and he said, I should go do events. Well, I did 2 of them and Stephen, they didn't work. Do them again. Do them more than once. Do them more than twice. People will need to see your face. They also need to know, they also need to be at that point of their life that they actually need to see you. One of the big things that we talk about in our overall, our strategy for startups to launch is, I talked about those first 100 patients. Those first 100 patients need to be on. So have that mindset that the first 100 patients of my startup are mine. You need to build out a VIP list. This is family. This is friends. This is friends of friends. This is colleagues. This is connections with local businesses. This is everybody. And I would say, like, if you can get to 100 to 200 people that are on that list, those are the people that they know they are the first ones to come into your practice. Build that list. By the way, that list can't take 2 weeks to do this. This is what happens with a lot of startups when they don't have a plan, that they think about like all the things that are happening. They say, okay, I've got my equipment, my construction's underway. I bought a few things for my practice. And then the last couple of weeks were like, oh crap. And this is where I start seeing, the posts on some of the social media groups. What do I need to do for I'm opening my doors in 3 or 4 weeks. What do I do? This needs to be starting to be planned out once construction begins on your startup. So, if that's a 4 to 6 month period of time, depending on where you're at in the country, it's not just, you're building the list, you're engaging, you're have things like post about like the progress of your practice, what's happening. I love when our clients do that. It's great because everyone can kind of see like, whoa, Dr. So-and-so is coming into our community. Whether you're engaging with people, you're having conversations. Hey, we're super excited. You're letting those people VIP list know, hey, I'm coming up on opening. This is where we're targeting. This is what's happening. Getting them engaged, because think about those first 100 people that they're on that. They feel like a VIP because you told them you're on my VIP list. You're the first people I called. You're the first people I reached out to become a patient of my new practice. They're going to feel special. And I bet they probably have 3 or 4 or more friends that will also say, wow, that was something I've never seen before, where I felt like, I was this VIP, I had this connection, and it was just, they're part of the excitement of launching the practice. So consistency, familiarity, trust. Consistency, familiarity, trust. Remember those 3 words if you remember anything from this podcast. Okay, now we're going to talk about the mindset shift. I think this is the reason why so many dentists hesitate. There's 2 things. I didn't go to school to like market myself. And I think number 2 is like I talked about earlier, I'm not an extroverted person. And that's fair, but this isn't about marketing. This is about leadership. This is about being a pillar in your community. When you stop trying to quote unquote get patients and start serving people, growth becomes a byproduct of that. If the focus is always like, I need patients, yes, I get it. You absolutely need patients, but the mind shift has to be into how am I making genuine human connections in my community, being as many events as possible, being engaged, connecting with people in my circles of friends and other different circles, different connections with local businesses, serving everybody. That's when you start getting loyal patients. That's when you start getting those 5-star reviews. And those 5-star reviews, people start to looking for a dentist. Your name is there because you've got hundreds of 5-star reviews. That is the byproduct of this entire process. Okay, let me paint you a quick picture. A startup dentist moves into a new area, no patient base. Instead of dumping tons of money into ads, they volunteer at local events, build relationships with gym owners, visit schools, introduce themselves, host a simple open house, make connections with local businesses in their community, build their VIP list. Within months, guess what? They're not the new dentist. They're the dentist that everybody talks about. That's the shift. One of our most recent openings here, her name is Dr. Alex. Actually, she's going to join me here soon, not today, but on an upcoming episode. So dropping some future stuff here. She opened her doors, and I'll say this: she opened in a competitive area, and she sent me all the photos of her grand opening, her open house, like just people galore. And one of the people that was in the picture, she said, "Hey, the mayor of our town came here." And by the way, this is not to knock on, I grew up in central Illinois, like West Central Illinois, like small town. We didn't have a mayor. So this wasn't like Mayberry. Again, dating myself. That's the Andy Griffith show. This was, a competitive area in the South in Florida, a very busy community. The mayor came to her opening, helped her cut the ribbon. Community leaders were there. What do you think that meant? Like day one, she had patients, a full schedule of patients. And it wasn't tricks. It wasn't tactics. It wasn't discounts. I'm telling you, you'll hear from her, one of the most genuine people that I've come across. And that's what I love about our clients are so genuine. And she just said, all right, what do I do? I'm going to go do it. I'm going to make genuine connections. And that's just who she was. And people just knew who she was at the core of her being a person. And that's how she had a schedule that was filled. And I'll tell you, she's hit some really awesome financial milestones in the first couple of months of her practice being open. But that's not what it was about for her. It was about, how do I build something to serve my community? Her mindset didn't need a shift. Her mindset was, I'm serving my community. If I do the right thing by every single person, then what, not only the patients, but those that she connects with, her team, if I do right, the byproduct is the success. Okay, so if you take one thing from today, it's this: growth doesn't come from being the best kept secret. It comes from being seen, known, and trusted. And community engagement is the fastest path to launching your practice. So ask yourself, where can I show up this week? Who can I connect with? How can I serve, but not sell? Because when you do that consistently, your practice won't just grow. It will belong and it will launch. So if this episode resonates with you, share it with another dentist who's trying to grow the right way or confused about what do I need to do? And if you're curious about building a practice rooted in relationships, not just about transactions, stay connected because we've got a lot more coming your way. Cool. So that is a wrap on, I call this from being invisible to being in demand. Don't forget to check any show notes for any and all links and resources that we talked about today. Next time, we are going to dive into some insurance strategies as we get into this. And we're going to be talking about this community engagement in more detail in a future with one of our great doctors. Her name is Dr. Alex. So I'll see you there.
As we wrap up this episode, take a moment to picture yourself a year from now. Are you still in your associateship, or are you rocking it at your own dental practice, creating beautiful smiles and making a real difference? If that's the dream, it's time to chase it. Before we split, make sure to hit subscribe, drop a review, and give us your rating. It helps us keep bringing you the good stuff that you're into. Until we meet again, keep taking that next step towards your future practice. Here's to investing in your dreams and making them a reality.